Welcome to the show, everyone. As you all know, I like to talk about everybody else on my radio show, and I love that about my show because who doesn't like to talk about themselves? And, you know, the great thing about it is the information that people are getting from this show. We're live on Facebook, so I do want to say hi to everybody out there. Like us and follow us. We're going to share the show later on. My first guest has now been on with me a few times. I have with me Jenna Bailey, and she's the founder of Bailey Law Firm. You have to tell everybody a little bit about your law firm. And you just this past June are celebrating your third anniversary. Kudos to you. Congratulations. Tell everybody a little bit about your law firm and yourself.
Sure. So I own an Arizona-based law firm. We have 3 locations, Tucson, Scottsdale, Tempe, and we're a full-service firm, meaning we intend to sort of provide that one-stop shop for everyday people who find themselves needing legal services.
Now, you have 3 locations. Let's talk a little bit about that. You have 3 locations to serve people, which is Tucson, Tempe, and Scottsdale. Woman-owned, right?
Right, yep. I'm the owner.
The other thing, well, woman-owned, I said that. But you said, woman-owned, that's right. But you have a lot of women also, but both men and women that work in the law firm?
Right, yeah. We have both. We kind of got known as a woman-based attorney because several of our first attorneys were women. So.
But that's good, because I was on your phone and I saw that. Okay,
right.
So, but the other thing that I want to talk about is that you are a full service. So, you know, almost any law. Let's talk about the different kind of law that you do help people with.
Sure. So personal injury is a big practice area of ours. Business law, estate planning, real estate law, and employment law. And the idea there is to serve as one place that average everyday people can kind of get all their legal needs handled.
Now, what we're going to do today is we're going to talk a little bit about personal injury. It's a good time. We've got Labor Day coming up, so a lot of people are going to be taking some time off or going on that little last holiday trip. And God forbid, now, but PI is not only just accidents. We want to talk really quickly about that. Let's talk about, what could be a personal injury case?
So personal injury is essentially someone who was injured, their body was physically injured by some sort of wrongdoing of another party. And that wrongdoing could be negligence, it could be, reckless or intentional. So certainly that includes, car accidents and slip and falls and dog bites like we've all heard about. But it also is sort of a subspecialty, includes things like medical malpractice, which my firm does a lot of. So that's same concept. It's just a doctor, licensed professional, hospital, negligently causing physical injury to somebody. So that still, in my view, kind of falls under this big umbrella of personal injury law.
There is a huge umbrella when it comes to that, but it's all about the case.
Right.
That's for sure, right? And so when you do a personal injury case, how does that work? How does it look when you do, because you're going to talk to them, you're going to do a consultation with them, right? And what then goes on? What can they expect?
Sure. So in the consultation, what we're doing is determining whether or not there's a legally viable personal injury case. And there's really 3 things that go into that. One, that sort of fault aspect. Is there some party who either negligently or worse, recklessly or intentionally caused? That's the second sort of element. And then third, some sort of physical injury. So when we're talking to a person, we're trying to determine whether or not those factors that make a case legally viable are there.
So they call you. Do you do consultation with them and sit down and talk to them about that? Your phone number to call direct. It's 480-681-5408. My suggestion is to put the number in the phone, because you never know. Obviously, you do other kind of law as well. Today, we're talking a little bit about covering the personal law, personal injury. But here's the thing about this. I said PI. Is that correct? Personal injury?
Right.
So, I want people to understand that you never know when something can happen and when you might need this. So it's a good place to put the phone number, which is in your phone under Bailey Law Firm. That phone number again, it's 480-681-5408. It's Bailey Law Firm AZ.com. They have 3 locations. It's Tucson, Tempe, and Scottsdale. They're rated with the Better Business Bureau as well. I want to go back to someone. How do they determine, whether they've got a case? How do they know?
In some circumstances, it can be obvious. If somebody runs a red light and hits you and you break your arm, you probably can be pretty sure you have a personal injury case. Certainly on the other end of the spectrum with the medical malpractice cases, there really would be no way for a layperson to know whether or not they have a viable medical malpractice case. Even as attorneys, in doing that initial consultation based on our experience in other cases, we may get a sense on whether we feel like there is or is not a viable case, but even in that circumstance, we rely on reviewing medical records and talking to experts to determine whether or not a case is viable. So in some circumstances it's obvious, and others you would really need to talk to an attorney who would then on their end need to do some work to even know whether there is a case or not.
How does someone know? How do you come up with how much a case is worth? Because that's the bottom line.
Sure, yeah, it's a good question. So there's kind of two components that go into that, and one is what I sort of call the hard numbers. So that's going to be, what are the medical bills involved in the case? Are there any lost wages, meaning did the injury cause the person to miss work and therefore lose wages? Is there any permanent injury that makes it such that the person can't engage in their line of work in the future? Those would all be some number that we can determine, hey, here's the specific number. The other side of it is the pain that the person went through, the emotional suffering, sort of just the day-to-day impact on their life. And a lot of people are surprised to learn that, at least here in Arizona, there's no guidance that a jury is given in terms of what that's worth. At the end of the day, if we end up in front of a jury at trial, one attorney is going to suggest one number, the other attorney is going to suggest another number, and there's no written instructions, there's no guidance from the judge in terms of what might be appropriate. So it can make cases very difficult to actually value in that way.
So my question is, do cases always go to court?
So go to court in terms of you have to file a lawsuit and there's litigation going on. Yes, that happens very frequently. Go all the way to trial where a jury is actually hearing the dispute. No, an overwhelming number of cases resolve far short of that. One is just the sheer time it takes to get to a jury trial, especially after COVID.
I was just going to ask you,
Right.
What's going on with that? Because I know they were backed up. They got to still be.
No, jury trials are up and running now. They have been
Back
for
to
some
normal.
time. But that being said, there's a big backlog. So, at some point the parties see the value to reaching a resolution, rather than waiting the several years it takes to have a jury hear their case.
Put the phone number in your phone. You do not know when something like this that you're going to need, whether or not it is an accident that can happen. But of course, slip and falls, we know that. Dog bites. There's also all sorts of things. But when you talk about medical malpractice, that's huge. And, a lot of people, one thing I do want to talk about, and I'm going to give out the phone number too, is a lot of times people don't feel like they have, I shouldn't do that, but they should. They should call and talk to you first. And because they have the rights, right, they should get, especially medical malpractice. Oh my God.
Well, and one reason is it's to seek justice for yourself, but also the idea in the larger picture is to deter such conduct. So one way to deter negligence and intentional, certainly reckless conduct as well, is to bring these lawsuits and hold those wrongdoers accountable.
That phone number is 480-681-5408. Their website is BaileyLawFirmAZ.com. She has 3 locations. It's Tucson, Tempe, and Scottsdale. She's rated with the Better Business Bureau. She is celebrating her 3rd year anniversary. And something, this is something where you really need to find out what's going on. We need to talk about it, talk about the case. Certainly if you're dealing with something that is as big as medical malpractice, you certainly need to talk to somebody about that. Give her a call. Her phone number is 480-681-5408. Hang tight. We're going to be back in just a minute. So we're going to keep on going in here. I do want to ask you about those consultations. I know I asked you a few times. When you're dealing with PI, medical, and all of this, do you do things on, when you're doing a consultation, is it a complimentary consultation that they get? Okay, I want to talk about that. Okay, so they do get a complimentary consultation.
Right.
How about whether or not it is done on a
Contingency.
Okay,
It
I want
is.
to talk about that too. Okay, I'm going to put this on the other piece of paper because this goes over here. because I didn't want to ask you that on air until I knew, but okay, so we want to talk about that. So people come in, that's when I kind of talked to you about how when they came in and you sit down and talk to them about their case, and you do now a free consultation. How does it work when you work on a contingency basis? Explain what that means to people out there.
Right.
What is that?
So what it means is there's no payment to the attorney, so no attorney's fees are paid unless there's a recovery, and then it's a percentage of the recovery. And fees are one issue, costs are another. So costs are the filing fees, paying experts. Those are third parties that have to be paid along the way in order to pursue the case. So the law firm also fronts all of those costs, and those costs are not recoverable unless there's a recovery.
Right. When we're talking about, I would love to do a story. So after you're done, I'm going to talk to you. So when we talk about different cases, right? And you're talking. Obviously, we know about the dog bites and the car accidents and stuff like that. You mentioned medical malpractice. Today, though, a lot of people are a little bit nutty. And they're at these parties and things happen. There have been drinking going on. And somebody accidentally or shoot somebody, I'm finding a lot of that happening in the news. This is also a case. Would you take on something like that?
Yeah, and that's one of the things in determining whether there's a personal injury case is there's a lot that goes into who might be an at-fault party, and it can be a little bit more complicated than just who the immediate wrongdoer was.
Right, but we do see a lot of these things happening more and more today. I think it's an important conversation to have because people are crazy, unfortunately, and bad things happen even to good people, right? And I think they need to know that they need to make sure that they have people that they can call and that they can count on to help them.
Yeah.
Goes by fast no matter what you do. Do second opinions apply in these kind of cases?
Yeah.
Okay. So welcome back, everyone. We are talking with Jenna Bailey, and she's the founder of Bailey Law Firm. We are talking about personal injury today. You never know when that's it. You might have even already been in. I have to ask you a question. I'm thinking my mind is going faster than my mouth right now. You might have already been in an accident, was what I was going to say. But I was thinking about the person that might have been in one. Okay. Is there a statute of limitations? I have to think of the words because I really don't know them as well as you do for that. Like, let's say they were in one, but do they have a certain amount of time that they could be able to call you and talk to you about that?
They do, and it depends by case a little bit. So 2 years is what, I think what a lot of people know, but depending on who the defendant is, it can actually be shorter than that. It can be as short as 180 days.
Wow. So you know what? If you've been in one or something's going on and you want to talk to her, whether or not it is an accident, a dog bite, we talked about medical malpractice. I mean, it can go deeper than that, and we're going to talk a little bit further. The phone number to call, it's 480-681-5408. At the break during Facebook Land, we were talking a little bit about the free consultations, which is basically what you have to do is find out, let's see what's going on here, let's see what kind of case you got, if you got a case. But then you also work on a contingency basis, and I think people on the air really need to hear that.
Right, so all personal injury cases, including medical malpractice type cases, are on a contingency basis, which means that the attorney's fees are not owed unless there is a recovery, and then the attorney's fees are simply a percentage of the recovery. Probably as important are the costs aspect of it. So attorney's fees are one thing, but case costs are different. It's very expensive to bring cases like this, especially medical malpractice cases. Experts have to be hired. There's court filing fees. There's depositions. So the law firm fronts all of those costs, and those are also not owed unless there is a recovery on your behalf.
She has 3 locations, Tucson, Tempe, and Scottsdale, rated with the Better Business Bureau. And the cool thing about you is that you also started your business during COVID, basically 3 years ago, and you're celebrating your 3, and you're going bigger and bigger. You're growing all the time. Somebody that you can count on, that you need to know that you can call and talk to them. Put the phone number in your phone. It's 480-681-5408. She works on a contingency basis with personal injury cases. Also, it's a free consultation, obviously, as well. I want to talk a bit about, I love this question that you brought up here, because that's what they do. They give me the questions to ask, which is, why so many personal injury billboards are out there and ads? I love that question, because they're like every few seconds, if not every other minute that you're driving down, you see another one, and they're smiling. Why are they smiling? Go ahead.
I can't answer the second question.
I know why.
Right. The first question, I actually get asked that a lot, and I believe that the uptick, one, has to do with simply more car accidents because more people are here in Arizona. There's been obviously a flood of people coming here. That means more people. Just statistically, that's going to mean more car accidents. And I'm also involved with Mothers Against Drunk Driving. I'm the president of the board of the Arizona group here, and I was looking at some statistics recently, and very sadly, instances of drunk driving are up significantly in Arizona this year.
I know why too. COVID, a lot of people were in the house. Oh, I just got to run out and get something, real quickly, and boom.
Right. So unfortunately, more accidents means more accident attorneys, which often means more billboards and buses and all that.
I'm going to say something. I think that it's because, you're getting one, and then you're sitting there on the freeway and you look up, right?
Yeah.
And you think that's a person to call. Not necessarily the right person to call.
But I think, from a marketing perspective, absolutely, because with accidents, it's one of those things, you don't need someone until you need them. Like with estate planning,
right.
Anyone could benefit from an estate plan. Mm-hmm. A car accident, hopefully you never need one. If you do need one, it's kind of like a quick panic situation of, oh my gosh, who do I call?
Right.
So for a marketing perspective, to
Makes
have
sense,
that name recognition.
But they're not always the best. That's all to say.
With anything, right.
Right. But I do want to also talk about, too, and I like this question, too. How does personal injury intersect with other practice of law?
Sure. So one of the reasons that my firm engages in multiple practice areas, and different attorneys, will handle the different practice areas based on their skill and experience. But for example, in the personal injury context, if we're able to get a recovery for you, and maybe before you thought, I don't have that many assets or anything worth setting up an estate plan for, now we're able to help you get a recovery, and maybe now you do have something that, you feel is worth sort of setting that up with, then we can help you with that too. So again, a different attorney who handles that practice area, but within the firm. So you don't have to sort of start over and, oh shoot, now I got to find someone who does trust. You're already in-house, and we can help you with that aspect as well.
I have to also mention this because my mind always goes to the kind of bizarre, but it is true. So, you also do family law?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm glad I asked you that because I thought that was the case. And the thing is about drinking, so you're not always driving. So you could be home, you could be having a fight. That now could become personal injury, depending on how bad, right?
How bad and, what the circumstances are.
Right. So you never know when, and then of course, you might need an attorney for divorce just because now you want to get a divorce from that person because it does interact for sure. It absolutely does. Again, she does do second opinions. I think the main thing to do is to find out whether or not you have a case. You have to sit down and talk. That's what it's all about right now. It's a consultation that's free. They work on a contingency basis. The phone number to call, it's 480-681-5408. Bailey Law Firm AZ.com, 3 locations, Tucson, Tempe, Scottsdale, and she's rated with the Better Business Bureau. I want to talk a little bit about, maybe you can have a little bit of a story, because medical malpractice is, it's very big, right? So somebody thinks that, again, there's got to be a very fine line that somebody walks on that. It's not as easy as it seems, right? Am I correct?
It's not, and it requires experts. So whenever there's a case against a licensed professional, which would certainly include a physician, a nurse, a hospital, we have to, before even bringing any sort of claim, hire an expert who is licensed in the same way of the person we're criticizing, who feels that that defendant breached what we call standard of care, meaning they provided care that is below what is the sort of generally acceptable care that should have been provided based on the circumstances. So that's not something that, even as a lawyer, again, having done this, I can hear somebody tell me their story and have an idea. But I need that expert testimony in order to determine whether or not we even have a case. So those are very complex. That's why you don't see medical malpractice billboards, because there's far fewer attorneys who do medical malpractice.
Though the thing is it's a silent thing too, right? And medical malpractice, there's people nursing homes.
Absolutely.
And that's huge. And I think a lot of people, again, they don't feel like, oh, well, we shouldn't do that because, they don't want to talk about it, right? I think they need to understand why it's so important that somebody does speak out and get, representation for themselves for that.
Sure. And, there's a lot to be said for just determining whether or not you have a medical malpractice claim. If you do, then obviously the benefit is pursuing the claim for you. But again, like I mentioned, helping hold that, doctor or hospital accountable so that hopefully it doesn't happen to someone else. But even if you talk to us and we don't feel you have a viable legal claim, we explain why. And for a lot of people, that helps with sort of closure of the situation as well, because it's really unfortunate what happened, but it's not going to be a viable legal claim.
Now, I think it's really cool that you're the president, you said, of Mothers Against Drunk Driving
in Arizona, yep.
In Arizona here. And, we have to bring it back to driving. Obviously, it happens a lot. And drunk driving, you said, is up. And even in that case, you would think that everybody has a case immediately, right? Just because they're hit by somebody who is drinking.
And you would be right on that. However, there are also potential other defendants that maybe a layperson wouldn't think of. So, for example, if a drunk driver hits you and causes injury, yes, absolutely a case against that person, which is pretty obvious. But you may also have a case against the bar or restaurant that served that person if they in fact overserved them. So there's, even for sort of straightforward cases, there are nuances in the law that we can help make sure that we're holding everybody accountable if appropriate.
That's why you got to be pretty careful today about what you're doing, especially let's say we're having Labor Day coming up, and a lot of people are going to be drinking. You might be even serving some kids some drinks.
Right.
It could come back to you, and you got to be careful. If, God forbid, something happens, the main thing is that if you listen to the show, you are going to hear this information. Put the phone number in your phone. The number to call, it's 480-681-5408. It's Bailey Law Firm, and again, it's Bailey Law Firm AZ.com. She's got 3 locations: Tucson, Tempe, and Scottsdale. They work on a contingency basis, so they do free consultations, second opinions as well. Again, that number, it's 480-681-5408.